society took that away from me. I allowed society. I allowed my parents to push me in a direction. I allowed society to push me in a direction. And ultimately, I am that 15-year-old girl that wanted to educate and empower and teach and laughed and had so much joy at that point in her life. And I have that back now, and I'm so happy.
Hello, everybody. We are so excited to bring you a brand new episode with another guest today. And our guest today is CJ Stasik. Did I say that right?
Stasik, but close.
Okay. Yeah, I like to ask because I know when people make an effort to pronounce my name correctly, it helps me feel.
Absolutely.
So, CJ Stasik. All right. Welcome, CJ. Please introduce yourself to my audience.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it and so happy to be here. I am CJ Stasik. I do run a marketing company, but I am also the founder of shehandlesit.com, which is a blog, workshops, and a community that I'm working on building to empower women to overcome the obstacles, add a little humor in their life, and realize that life's not that serious.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Beautiful. She handles it. All right. We're going to dive deep into your story. And this podcast is all about the mindset, the warrior mindset, and how you unleash your inner warrior. So if you're ready, we'll go right into it and get real deep with your story, if that's okay.
Absolutely. And I will do my best not to get emotional because I have told this story like 10 times. And every time I do, I just go right back to that moment. So for me, I'm the kind of individual that was raised that women are superwomen. We have superpowers and we can do everything. And I remember this one day where I left work in a panic, stopped at the grocery store, loaded all my groceries into the back of the car, got to the house, loaded both arms up with all of the groceries, and then opened the door with my high-heeled foot. When I opened the door, my son, my teenage son, I have you, was standing there and snapped a picture. He had watched me from the front window. And instead of helping, to him, it was just funny because here's mom doing everything again. And in that moment, I should have just laughed and been able to be like, what am I doing? But instead, I dropped the groceries and I had a very emotional cry because I realized that I had done this to myself. My son is willing to help, but I just pushed him aside and I pushed most of my village aside. And in that moment, I decided that my mindset had to change and that my superpower had to change and that just because I could didn't mean I should. So that was a big pivotal moment and kind of the groundbreaking moment for me to really focus on She Handles It.
Wow. Okay. Wow. There is so much to unpack there. I love that story. And I can so relate. And I know many people listening will be able to relate because you're right. We've been trained to be superwomen. We've been trained to handle it all. And we've been trained to not ask for help. So let's break it down. Tell me what was going on in your life at that time and where this conditioning even came from. Do you have a clear understanding of how you became that person who just had to do it all herself?
So if I really were to think about my journey and kind of understanding it, I'm at the point in my life where I've really tried to heal myself and heal the inner child. And what I realized is that I was the child, the oldest, and I was rewarded for productivity, right? So when I did something well and I did something right and I handled something, that was when the attaboy, the gold star, the pat on the back, the attention, the love would come. And so I really set myself up to believe that I needed to be busy and constantly productive in order to feel validated and in order to feel like I was achieving something. So my days were incredibly packed. I was running a marketing agency and my schedule was packed from the time that I got here till the time that I left. I was, raising 2 children at the time and, being able to try to get them to whatever events they had at the end of the day. And then being a homemaker and being a wife and trying to handle all of those duties. And I really just kept myself to that superwoman to where I had to do all of it all the time for everyone. I had my calendar to the point where I didn't even have time to go to the restroom. I would have to hop on a Zoom and be like, I'm so sorry. Can you wait just a minute? And I would sneak out to pee because I didn't have time in between. Yeah. It was really a lot of that feeling but if I wasn't busy, I didn't feel good. I didn't feel like I was achieving anything.
Yeah. It's such a common thing, right? That so many women, so many people deal with. We think being busy is what makes us productive, right? What do you think? Do you think that this was a conscious thing that maybe your parents or people around you were helping condition in you, or was it just a subconscious thing that just kept happening without them even realizing this was happening to you?
I think it was a combination because, like most first children, right, my parents wanted me to succeed. So when I did well, I did well and they rewarded me. And then I also grew up with a father that wanted to prepare me for adulthood. So
Mm.
I kind of felt like no matter what I did, it was never good enough. So that created that hustle nature, right? Like I just have to keep going, have to keep going, have to keep going. And so I think it was a combination of subconscious and consciously having people reward me for those activities, and then in the back of my mind it's like, okay, well, I must be doing something right because everyone's telling me, oh my god, you're so good, you're so great. And it just kept perpetuating that to
Yeah.
the point where I would go home and want to just sit in my room and cry because I just was so overwhelmed and I felt like I was failing in all of those avenues. So I was being rewarded for my activity, but I felt like I was falling short everywhere because I couldn't do the things I wanted to do for my kids. I didn't feel like I was learning enough at work to keep me going. I did not feel like I was being the best spouse because, again, there were just things that I couldn't do that I thought I should be able to do. And just the time that I had allocated wasn't on the things that I really needed to allocate my time to.
Wow, that sounds exhausting just listening to it. It's like so much. You're trying to fit so much in and yet feeling like you're not making it in any of those areas, right? So
Yes.
when you say you were feeling like you weren't meeting your own expectations in all of these areas, when did you start to feel that? Was that like when you were still a teen, older, or this was closer to the incident that happened with the shopping bags?
Yeah, so I think for most of my life, I'm one of those people that I was happy when people around me were happy. So if
Mm.
my parents were happy because I was doing well in school, that made me feel happy. If my spouse was happy because the house was clean or because, I had done certain things, like I was happy. If my kids were happy because I showed up at a school event, they were happy. But what I realized is I didn't feel any joy. My
Mm.
happiness was directly gauged on everybody else's happiness, and there was just no joy. So at the point, probably around the COVID time, when that shifted a change in all of us, when I really had to sit down and I'm like, I can't keep doing this because COVID should have been a little bit of a relief. Okay, I can't go into the office. I'm at home. I'm going to be able to be more present for my kids. No, I actually ended up working almost double for probably almost the first 6 months of COVID because why? Because I didn't have to leave to go anywhere. So it's
You
like,
had
okay,
more
I don't
hours in the day.
exactly.
Oh
So
my
instead,
God, CJ, this is
I know it's
crazy. Wow. I mean, this is a lot. Okay. Okay. But thank you. Thank you for being honest and thank you for sharing that because I know that there is a happy ending here and we're going to
of
get to it.
course.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you're now overworked even more than before during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Um, at what point does that whole thing come crashing down? Is that the day of the incident with the bags?
So it's right around that time frame, yeah. So the incident really came to one night I was cooking dinner, and it was probably 6 o'clock, and my phone was ringing off the hook for work related things. And at that time, the conversation that I finally had the courage to say was, no, like I'm not, I'm done. It's after 6. I have been up since 6 o'clock this morning. I have been on, and I have taken care of everybody, and no. And it was that one no that led to the next no, and led to the next no. And it just kind of spiraled into this empowering moment to where I realized that saying no doesn't mean that I'm letting people down. It's actually the reverse.
Yeah.
It's meaning that I can't give my all to you right now. So it's not fair for me to say yes. And once I started to really think about that, it really helped. And then that helped me get rid of mom guilt, right? I felt a lot of guilt around not being a Betty Crocker mom. That's what I call it, right? Showing up every classroom, with the cupcakes and reading the books in the classroom and volunteering on all the field trips. And I felt so much guilt around that. And I had to let that go because I had to decide what is the example that I do want to set for my daughter, right? And it wasn't just showing up in the classroom. No, it is being able to see that I can run a successful business, take care of my children, take care of my family. And that was more important. And that mean I had to put my attention where I was going to excel most,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Chatting with the moms around the table with cupcakes, that's not where I excel.
Right.
And I don't want my daughter to think that that's something she has to do just because the other moms are doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like There's so many things going on here again. It's like there is this idea of people pleasing where you want to make sure others around you are happy. And I'm a recovering people pleaser, I say now. I used to be a chronic people pleaser, so I can totally relate to that. So, you're starting to get to this breaking point and you have this incident where you are, with all of these shopping bags, trying to multitask and do all of these things together. What is going through your mind when that day comes around and you actually end up just releasing all of that stress in the shape of, tears or just breaking down? What is going through your mind at that point?
Is that there has to be a major shift. There has to be a major change. You start to realize your physical health and well-being, your attentiveness, how you show up presently, is all altered by that stress, by that overwhelming, by that fear. And, I say I'm a recovering superwoman, a recovering perfectionist, right? Perfectionism, it was like always something you strive for, right? I want everything to be perfect. And what I realized, and people like Brene Brown tell us, perfectionism is about other people. What will they think? Yeah. How will they feel? Right? Where healthy striving, striving to something in a healthy manner is like, what can I learn? How can I improve? How can I be better? And for me, that was the shift, is really just starting to say, what is it that I'm trying to accomplish? And what I was trying to accomplish was building a life that I could be proud of, providing for my family, and teaching my children how to be the best version of themselves that they can be. And I wasn't setting the right example. I don't want either of, my two children to feel some of the things that I felt. And some of that comes naturally with growing up, but some of it can be avoided if I can break the cycle, right? If I can break the cycle. And that was really my focus, is like, okay, it is time to break the cycle, fix it, so that my children don't have to wait until they're 40 years old to, finally be able to feel joy. And ultimately, that's what it was.
Here's to all the cycle breaking, right? May we all continue to break those cycles that don't serve us. I'm sure many, many, many women listening to this are going to relate. We are all, so many of us wait for that breaking point to ask for help or to look at a different way of doing things. I was just talking to somebody at a workshop yesterday, and this woman was talking about how she had 4 kids and the last 2 pregnancies were really difficult, ended up impacting her back. And it was only when her back started to hurt so bad that she couldn't do things around the house is when she sought help. And so this is what we do. We wait till, everything starts to fall apart, or we wait till it's gotten too much and we can't take it anymore. And that's when we seek out for help. And I'm sure, like me, you probably now, when you look back at it, wish that you had done something sooner.
Oh, right? Absolutely. Yeah. And then you go back and you're like, okay, well, if I had done something sooner, things, may be different. And for me, and what I always tell women is that when you are so busy, you don't have any quiet time. There's no quiet space. Your creativity, your ability, your intuition, like all of those things are stifled because you can't hear it, you can't feel it because you're so busy. Yeah. And once I finally decided that I needed to focus on giving myself that time to become and find who I really wanted to be, my eyes started to open up. And then I started to realize so much about my life. I was in a relationship that no longer served me, my children, or my spouse at the time. I was, working a job, heading down a path that wasn't going to fit me long term. And I needed to make changes, but I could not see any of that until I had that time, until I started giving myself the ability to meditate or think of what I'm grateful, journal, turning off the radio in the morning and putting on a podcast or a book to feed my brain. Like all of those little changes, it really opened my eyes. And now in September of this year, I got married to my soulmate. And like, I can feel confident saying that because it is something I've never experienced before in my entire life. And all of it came from me deciding to work on me. And I was alone for an entire year in which I did not date. I didn't talk to anybody else. And I just focused on really figuring out who I was. And oddly enough, and what I'm finding through some research is I'm the 15-year-old version of myself. The way that I thought back then, the things that I strived for, how I felt about myself, what I wanted for myself, like in all of those kinds of things. And I realized that, oh my God, society took that away from me. I allowed society. I allowed my parents to push me in a direction. I allowed society to push me in a direction. And ultimately, I am that 15-year-old girl that wanted to educate and empower and teach and laughed and had so much joy at that point in her life. And I have that back now, and I'm so happy.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. This is so great. This is everything that I talk about. So I'm so glad you're touching all of the points that I talk about. I always say we're living this life that where success is defined by the society, the culture, the world we live in, or we were brought up in, and we lost ourselves along the way. And as we start to make that journey back, we not only find out who we are, but we declutter all of that crap that's holding us back. So, okay, so you had this big epiphany, you started to change your ways, but obviously it didn't happen overnight, right? It probably took a long time. So, what was like that first step that you took? Because I feel like a lot of people know where they need to go, but they struggle with like, how do I even start? Where do I even begin? So, what did that look like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like I had a little bit of an edge because up until that point, I had tried to do all the self-help stuff, right? Reading all the books, kind of understanding and all of that, but I couldn't put it into practice, or at least no matter how hard I tried, it didn't. So for me, it really started with recognizing that I don't believe balance between personal and professional is achievable. I believe more in work-life integration, and that you've got to find the right way to integrate those parts of your life so that you can be successful in both of them. So some of the first things that I did were really around time management and what I did with my time. So being a little bit more of a calendar hoard, right? And protecting my calendar at all costs, learning to say no for things that really weren't going to drive the needle forward to free me up for time. I started integrating my home calendar with my work calendar so that my team could understand I have this event with my daughter, or I've got this going on. I even pulled my team in and was like, hey guys, I'm going to leave the office on 4 o'clock on these days so that I can get my daughter, take her to swim. And then after dinner, around 8 o'clock, I will be able to hop back on, take care of any emergencies. So I just really became very protective in what I did with my time. I mentioned earlier too, being able to educate myself and learn and kind of keep growing in our industries and what we do is really important. But when you're busy, that's the thing that goes to the wayside, right? You don't have time. So I have a 40-minute commute. I love music, and I had to give that up in the mornings or in the afternoons, depending on what I was trying to do. So on my way to the office, instead of just listening to music, I would put on a work related podcast or book so that when I showed up at the office, I was ready to rock and roll. I didn't need that time to get geared up, sit down, get all my stuff in order. I was walking in with ideas fresh, ready to roll. And then in the evening, it was reverse. So if I didn't have anything major going on, music is blasting and I'm getting myself ready to walk in the house, cook dinner so that I don't have that moment where it's like, guys, I just need a minute. Guys, I just need a minute. So really starting to reframe, how I used my time. And then I let go of the guilt. And I realized that, and I mentioned earlier, life is not that serious. Yeah. And I would constantly put the same guilt that as kids, we let our parents put on us. If you don't do these things, you're going to be in trouble, you'll get grounded, you can't do. And I was like, you know what? What is the worst case in the world that could happen to me right now is that I get fired. And I'm like, is that really the end of the world? No. So, okay, guess what? I'm going to leave at 4 because my daughter has practice and I want to be there. And so when I let go of that guilt and I started acting like the executive that I'm supposed to be, it started to shift. And that was really more aha moments after that is what else can I adjust? What else can I change? And then I started going out and networking and meeting other women like yourself that are, living this and breathing it and empowering it. And what I realized is when I surround myself with people that are at the same vibration, same elevation, same like where I'm at, I felt more empowered. And it was so much easier to say no, or so much easier to say yes to the right things because I felt that encouragement, that sense of belonging.
Wow. Yeah. So many nuggets there for all of us to take away. I think that, as humans, we are social beings. We want to feel accepted. We want to feel loved by the community that we're in. And so we do everything we can to be loved and liked by everyone around us, right? But the minute we realize, like you did, that this whole attempt at being loved and liked by everyone around me and driving myself into the ground is not working anymore. So it sounds like the first step you did was to hit the brakes and be like, okay, this is not working. So this has to stop. And then, okay, I need to have a plan, right? And then you kind of went into this whole execution of merging your calendars, having clear communication with your, coworkers or your teams, and telling them explicitly what your decision was, right? That first step, I would think, was the break, and then the clarity on what you want, how you want your life to look like, and then the communication and the implementation of that. So how long would you say it took you from going to like being this crazy superwoman who was trying to do it all to like, okay, now I have some sort of a control and balance. Well, I know balance is not the word we want to use, but some sense of, like quiet time along with all the craziness, right? So balance in that sense. Do you know how long it took, like over time?
So first off, I would say as a caveat, like there are still times where I have to remind myself, okay, we're not that person anymore. We're not going to do this. We're not going to, let this happen. But honestly, I would say that, once I had that moment where I was like, crying on the floor because of the groceries situation, and it's just like, no, this is going to stop. I would say each month after that started to get better and better and better.
Mhm.
And, within 6 months, I felt more in control. I felt like I could breathe more. And then, you start to develop your own type of coping mechanisms. And for some people, those are, working out and going outside and, those different types of things. But for me, it was first being able to laugh at myself. Like, so I have this, thing that I call the laugh, the breathe, and the reset. And so it's like, first, like when you start to recognize that you're kind of going down a direction you don't want to, it's like, you got to find the humor in it, right? We've been here before. This doesn't serve me. And if there's no humor to be found, then it's like, let's take that pause and go look at a meme or a TikTok or something and just break that cycle. And then the next thing is to take a couple of very intentional deep breaths to
Mhm.
relax the body. And then from there, you reset, right? What can I do right now to adjust the situation? And what I didn't know at the time that I was doing was I was helping to rebuild my neural pathways, right? I was
Yeah.
breaking old cycles because I was saying, okay, I no longer want this to trigger me in this way. And instead, I'm going to find another solution. A book that really helped was The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle,
Yeah.
because it let me put so much that I had learned through all the self-help books that you see with like Rachel Hollis, Mel Robbins, Brene Brown, and all these people. But for something about that book, let me put those things into practice.
Mhm.
And it was such a big change because from then it actually became fun. It was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I'm feeling overwhelmed right now. Why am I feeling overwhelmed? What coping mechanism do I need to do? And it's like, then I listen more to my inner dialogue. I don't like how I'm talking to myself. Let's change it, right? Like you just start to have fun once you realize you can control these and you can change these patterns and behaviors.
Oh my God, that's so true. So true. I love The Power of Now. I love Eckhart Tolle. Everything that he's about, I love. And that was one of the books. His book, A New Earth, changed my life. It really did. I remember when Oprah and him did a whole thing together. It was like every chapter by chapter, it was like, oh my God. But
Yeah.
it's amazing to hear the transformation that you've made for yourself. So when you were at that like lowest point in your life where everything was just chaotic and nothing was under control and it just felt like you were heading right into burnout, if you had to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like I'm in warrior mode flowing and just going through life cruising beautifully, and 1 being like I need help, where
Yeah.
would you say you were at that point?
I would say most days were a 1 and good days were a 3. It was just
Yeah.
like it was total burnout, and it was complete masking and just breakdown at the end of the day. Almost to the point where you just didn't even know how to communicate with people around you because you had nothing good to say. Like you would
Yeah.
just, I would want to start crying. How was your day? Like
Oh.
just like you just, what do you do? No, you just go into like numb mode, right? Just dinner, shower, pajamas, bed, like, just that cycle. And that a lot of people don't realize they're in that cycle. And until you start to break it, you don't realize how deep, you are into just that repetitive world of letting years after years just fly by.
Yeah. Sounds like it was complete depletion, right? Where would you say you are now?
So I would say on a bad day, I'm probably at an 8 because a bad day is only just an opportunity for me to learn from it. And most days I really am functioning at a 10. My team is happier because we've got better communication. I'm not on edge nowhere as much. They can approach me a lot easier because they're not worried about me being overwhelmed. My calendar, even though it's not great and I still constantly am trying to improve it, still affords me to do the things that I need to do. And it just, overall, it allows me to be in control. If I want my day to be a 10, I know I can make it a 10. And it's all a matter of how things affect me. It doesn't mean every day is great and bad things don't happen. Running an
Right.
agency, clients, leave all the time or you're always dealing with an issue. So it's, being able to be in control of myself and my mood has improved my relationship with my team, my family, and everything else around me.
Yeah, I bet they can all see the difference in you now, right?
Definitely.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, I'm so glad that you were able to make that transformation. And I'm so grateful that you were open to share all of your journey with us. It's been amazing to hear how you made that transformation because I know a lot of people can see themselves in your shoes either now or where you were before. And, if they're seeing themselves in where you were before, hopefully this story that you shared gives them hope that they can come across over to the other side. I call it getting off the hamster wheel, identifying all of these invisible backpacks that we're carrying for no reason, looking through them, discarding all the stuff that doesn't serve us, and then getting onto this like conveyor belt where it's nice and easy and you can actually pause and look around and talk to people and have that time. So I love, love,
Love
love
the
everything you
analogy.
shared. Yeah.
Thank you. That's a great analogy. I'm probably going to steal that one.
Go ahead. It's all yours. The more we share these, the better we can help each other, right? And I also agree with what you said about it's not always a 10. And that's one of the things that a lot of people even say to me, like, "Oh, you're all about mindset. How are you always so positive?" I'm like, I'm not always positive. There are days and there are days, but yeah, it takes me less time to bounce back now than it used to. So I think that's the key thing. And, I always say it's the 80-20 principle. If you're in a high white mindset for 80% of the time, that's a win. It doesn't have to be 100, right? So thank you again for sharing that with us. Do you have a favorite quote that you can leave us with?
I do. It's by Henry Ford. And I've loved it for years because it's just really simple. And it's if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
I love it. I have that in one of my chapters in my book. It's so good. And it's so true, right? Our mindset controls everything. And if we start to think that we can, we'll not only, be able to get there, but we'll also attract the people and opportunities that will help us to get there.
Absolutely.
So that's amazing. Okay. For people who want to reach out to you and learn more about what you do, how can they find you, CJ?
Absolutely. It's really simple. You can find me at shehandlesit.com and also at 1seo.com, but primarily shehandlesit.com, hoping to help as many people as possible by sharing my chaotic stories and how I've overcome them. So thank you so much for letting me share.
Of course, you're so welcome. And I can't wait for people to hear this episode. And we will put all of your details in the show notes. Thanks again for being here.
Thank you so much.